Hello and welcome to the Bridetender podcast. I'm your host, Esty Levin, and I'm here to tend to the brides like I tend to the bar. So mix yourself a cocktail and let's get ready to discuss all things weddings. Today, I am here with Liz Norment, and she is on two different sides of the business. So I want to touch on both of those sides and then kind of go into something special that she's doing so that all of you guys can hear about it. So Liz, first and foremost, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit. So the way that like you and I kind of connected is you let me know that you are an officiant for weddings. How did you get into that?
Sure. So I was working in the wedding industry in a few different facets for a while, starting as an assistant planner like 8 years ago. And then I was working for a wedding dress designer on the fashion side, doing marketing. So throughout that, I just kind of fell in love with the event space and particularly weddings. And for the wedding dress designer, because I was doing marketing, I was reaching out to brides. So communicating with them, creating all of our social media strategy and blog posts, email campaigns. So I really just loved the language and kind of the power that could have surrounding the industry. And I've been a writer since I knew how to pick up a pencil. So I kind of just put the two together and created a very unique style of officiating. So yeah, it fell into place logically, but it definitely took a lot of work to get to where I am now. So yeah, that's kind of the backstory.
I think what's also kind of cool is that in today's times, it's not so much of I feel like ceremonies are no longer like a source of like religion opposed to like spirituality, having somebody who just like connects with the couple. So it, even though you might intertwine like some religious aspects in ceremonies, I'm seeing more people go toward having an officiant that's like non-denominational, like doesn't really like go like one way or the other with religion for the ceremony.
Exactly. And what's good about that, since we're kind of getting away from some of that like heavy tradition, is that the ceremony can become whatever the couple wants it to be. So if they do want to pull in religious elements or even something from like cultural ties, I always love researching that and pulling it in. But really, I always say this, but the ceremony is the only conversation that you can control on your wedding day. So you can set the atmosphere for all of these things to happen, but you just kind of let it unfold. So I take that very exciting challenge very seriously to let them know, what do you want to have communicated? What do you want your guests and your friends and family to feel that is going to then set the tone for the remainder of the evening? So it's really exciting to have like that flexibility for each couple, truly.
So now you have like worked different areas of the business, which I can relate to because I feel like when you're in the wedding world, you kind of like get sucked in and then you want to try different areas, do different things, but still stay within the wedding world because there's truly nothing like it. Like, yeah, it's like the mafia, like once you're in, you can't get out.
I completely agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I wanted to ask you now, being that you have another section of your business, which I think is like the most fun thing ever, honeymoon planning. I want to know how you got into that, and then I want to like go into that a little bit.
Sure. So I've always loved traveling. And whenever I started to dream up the idea of being an officiant, I really wanted to use my ceremonies to create a transportive experience. And what I mean by that is painting these pictures almost like postcards about couples, trips that they've taken, adventures that they've had around the world. So, and, really, again, carry their guests through that experience. So then I kind of thought, well, what if I add an additional travel component to it? I really love, like I said, I love traveling. And I recognize that as people are planning weddings, often the honeymoon element is kind of set aside. And while the wedding is for them, it is kind of majorly for their guests. So the honeymoon is truly there. So taking that aspect and saying, okay, what if I can create something that based on what I've learned about them in creating the ceremony, the types of travelers they are, and add to that experience and really dive into what they want to see, like where in the world they want to go, who they are, what's, what they want to focus on for this trip, and then kind of add, figuratively, like additional chapters to their story that I've already kind of started along with.
Yeah, and I think the honeymoon being, now obviously people do this all differently. Some people go directly after their wedding. Some people like take a couple months and then go later, which I used to never understand because I'm like, no, it should all be at the same time. I'm like your typical Capricorn. So I'm like, what do you mean? Like order, like I can't do that. But after having my own wedding, I can see why people like it's something really to look forward to. And like you are coming off of a high from like your wedding, some stressful elements as well, that like to kind of have something later on to look forward to and like not have like the stress of like the wedding beforehand is really nice.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And also that's the whole reason that these all inclusive places came about, because people say, well, I don't want to do any of the planning, but I do want to be able to go away kind of right after the
Mhm.
wedding. So then they fall into this very cookie cutter experience at, Sandals or something like that. Where, maybe in the pictures it looks like we're going to meet like couples that are going to be our friends for the rest of our lives, and we're going to have all these unique excursions and 4 different dinner options on property, but like one of them is an all-night pizzeria. Those aren't
Right.
options. Those are a limited space that is created because you don't have the time, you don't give yourself the time to figure out the rest of those steps. So working with a planner means that you won't, it's the feeling of all inclusive because you don't have to figure the rest of that out, but you actually get to experience the world. So
Totally. Yeah. And I think we see so many people, even though there's a lot of people who still do like the Sandals or Rio or like somewhere that's very all inclusive beach, you're seeing a lot of people who are taking, especially because we have so many people working remote now. Not me, I don't know what that feels like, but I'm like people who will take 2 to 3 weeks and they'll travel like all of Europe, or like they're doing like the safari, like things like that, and having like totally different experiences.
yeah, absolutely. I think that the way we're looking at the world in general is very different. So hoping to like open your eyes to what things could be. And yeah, that's the way, the craziest feeling about planning a honeymoon is truly like I look at the globe, that's that I start with,
Yeah.
okay, truly a world of possibilities, and then kind of tailoring that. So
I personally went to Sandals. We were like, honestly, I thought it was great. But I also feel like I'm like one of those people who's like run, 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 go, go, go. That on my honeymoon, I wanted to be a potato.
yeah,
And I
I don't
was.
blame you at all. I mean, trust me,
Like
I've gone on trips on my own and been like, why am I doing so much? This is the opposite of
sometimes I'm
vacation.
like, if I come back from vacation and I'm like not rested by any means, I'm like, I did it totally wrong. So I
Absolutely.
like decided to go a different route. And I was like, I just want to like be near a beach or near a pool, and like I want to like look out like the back door of my hotel room, and like a pool be there and
Absolutely.
not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I do see what you're saying, and I do think in today's time, in today's climate, um people have so many options, and now of course with like COVID being on like the back end, you
Mhm.
have like more life to live. I feel
Mhm.
like.
Absolutely. But honestly, I hear what you're saying, Esty. Like people also need to recognize how important rest and relaxation is, especially on a honeymoon. So that's kind of what I have to try to dive into, that even if they feel like normally they're adventurous travelers, probably divide that desire for adventure in half, because if not, it's like you need to desperately decompress from like all of the intensity of and excitement of planning the wedding. So
Definitely, definitely. So now I want to ask you this, like a little bit off course, but during the pandemic, did you do a lot of like elopements?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a very interesting time because to do what I do with officiating, because all of a sudden the reception is taken off the table completely. So all
Right.
they had was a ceremony for the most part. So I was doing a lot of, yeah, very small elopements. I was doing some, not so many online only weddings, but ones that had a Zoom element where people were connecting from all over the world. And it was just like so incredibly heartwarming to say, wow, like they want to get married right now. They don't feel the need
Yeah.
to wait anymore, and making sure that the words that I write are able to reach through the screen and make people feel this, that they are united and connected. So yeah, it was a very crazy experience, but I found that, using my talents to again connect people meant the world to me.
Yeah, and I think we're still even living in a time where I don't I almost feel like, and listen, like I work in the wedding field, I do parties all the time, but I almost feel like the days of like a 300-person wedding are gone. Like they're gone. Like people are like, I want more intimate, and they're still spending money, but they're putting their money in other places opposed to like, oh, I need a million people there. It's like not about the people there. It's more about like a tight knit and it just feeling like, closer to home.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that the big change there, there are definitely still those huge events, but I think
Yeah.
that the really positive change is that people are more willing to speak up about what they want, because for every 300-person wedding, probably half of the brides or grooms or the partners don't really feel comfortable in that setting, but they're doing it because they
Right.
feel like they have to, or they have to certainly appease family members or just keep up with the Joneses. So now I think that because so many things have shifted in our thought process, that people are more willing to say, you know what, that's just not for me, and I'm okay with that. So I think that it's a really great transition to say, like, let's make sure that people build events and use opportunities to gather for something that they respond to.
So now, with all of that, I want to get into the event that you have going on April 30th. I'm going to let you like totally go into it about what you're doing that day, what it's for, and like let everybody know.
Sure. So, kind of going off of what we were just talking about in this kind of shift in the industry, and people really understanding the importance of gathering in any context, I found that again, people are tending towards more smaller or more intimate gatherings and adding some other elements that is personal or speaks to their hearts. So I am putting together a full day of pop-up elopements. 100% of the proceeds will be going to a charity that's called Vow for Girls. So Vow is a global movement that is aiming to end child marriage, which I know you say child marriage and people are like, what is that? Because it doesn't feel very prevalent in our daily lives, but one statistic that they have is that every 3 seconds a child is forced into marriage against her will. And when I say child, it's like 12 and 13-year-olds.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very prevalent throughout globally, and it's something that doesn't get enough attention at all. So what Vow for Girls does is they raise funding to pay for like job training, education, all these different life skills to help these girls have a future, so that they won't be led into this situation where they don't have any choice. So on April 30th, I'll be hosting a full day of pop-up elopements in Central Park. We're going to do, or I'm going to do 15-minute time slots for couples.
Oh my God.
So I will have like a really a standard but very beautiful ceremony that is going to excuse me, draw them into the scene and the honor of the cause. They will be legally married on the spot. And then from there, I'll be hosting a gala just for the couples that eloped, almost as a like joint wedding reception and celebration, but also for people in the industry to come and to connect with the cause and just to additionally support Vow's mission. And one way that we're doing that at the event is you know, again, it's kind of a challenge to make sure that people understand the need, or that this is a very prevalent issue and feel
Yeah.
connected to it. So we're going to have a like an activation experience where you get to really connect with your 13-year-old self and imagine if your choices ended there. If your future ended at 13, who were you then? So understanding like, where did you think you would live when you grew up? What did you think you would be? Like, what would your job be? Even like, what was your AOL screen name? Because that was kind of how we defined ourselves.
Yeah.
All these, you know, who was your boyfriend or girlfriend? So all these different things that we realize like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful that I was able to grow beyond that point
Right.
and have choice. So that we can all kind of understand that even if this isn't something that's happening exactly in our backyard, we were all once 13 and we all definitely appreciate growing and moving forward from there.
Absolutely. And I think that like the fact that so many people can get married that day is really kind of cool. And then all meet each other at this event. It's very like love is blind.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
Absolutely. And again, it's a perfect option for couples who just want something small, meaningful, to have an additional element that they'll feel connected to. And eloping in Central Park is just very iconic and amazing. So,
Iconic and definitely very romantic.
for sure.
Like Central Park is the place to be, especially if you are getting married in New York City. That is like where you want to be getting married.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So now how can people like sign up to do this if they were to?
Sure. So I have a landing page on my website, which my website is haveloverwilltravel.com. And you can find that page via, you know, the search bar basically. So that will link to a sign up for 15-minute time slots. Like I said, they start at 11 a.m. and end at 6 p.m. So couples can sign up for that time slot. Once they sign up, they will have a choice of tiered pricing that will directly show them how what they pay, what it will do for vows mission. So just for example, $611, if they choose that tier, will pay for 10 girls to have job training for 1 year.
Wow.
So, but if they want to pay like more like the $300 range, they will understand exactly what their how their money is making an impact. And then when they show up for that day, they will be assigned a photographer. My heart has been so full to hear the response from people in the industry who are just willing to give their time and talent. So they will have an assigned photographer. They will get 5 free photos of the elopements. If they want to purchase the full gallery, they'll have a pricing, and a portion of those proceeds will be donated as well. And we're going to have like bouquets of flowers if they want to hold that during the elopement, also donated, which is amazing. We're going to have some bands popping through during the day. So it's going to be just a very like celebratory experience for a very small wedding, but it'll feel very connected. And I've been saying that it's kind of like a tour de force of female entrepreneurs who have really surrounded this event. So
I think in like today's times, we're seeing so many of these like female empowered events, and it just goes to show like the wedding industry really has grown so much in such a short amount of time. I mean, even I've been in the field since I'm a child, but even just seeing the growth between the beginning of the pandemic to now, like all the things that people have done to like reinvent themselves, to do more in the industry. All these events that came back, like the Knot Gala and WIPA and all of these, and you have so many people who are attending, like people are ready to like get out there, and
mm,
it feels really good. It feels like we're like finally back to normal.
absolutely. And I think that it feels like we're recharged, that we definitely recognize that there are so many things that can happen outside of our control. Nobody expected the entire world to shift completely. So now like we're taking advantage of those opportunities to connect, to give back, to use our talents in whatever way, and really just to support each other, which is great.
I think in the beginning of 2020, when everything shut down, a lot of people were concerned about what what that meant for them with their careers. I mean, I know I
Mhm.
was off of work for quite some time. And even though I had like other things that I was doing, it like brought out a side of me. I actually thought like this would have had me like spiraling, but I
Mhm.
think because everybody was in the same boat, it like was weirdly calming. And I was like, you know what? Like, I gotta just like take it day by day and see what happens. And to see that our field has not only come back, but like come back tenfold. I mean, like
Absolutely.
we've all been busier than ever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I do think it was a good opportunity to kind of, figure out what are my not only what are my goals, but kind of what are my most important values, personal values and business values, and say, okay, what can I build or how can I make sure that I'm holding on to those in the future? So yeah, it was a crazy time. I always like to
So
ask people, what was like, did you have one pandemic, hobby that you picked up that you thought like, oh, I'm just gonna do this, and you've never touched it again? Like
well,
I did
so
the sourdough thing. I was
oh,
gonna
a
be making
sourdough.
sourdough
That's good though.
bread.
You were like baking. Like that's for
Yeah, but it was like a
me,
3-day experience per loaf. And I was like, screw this, I'm not, this is dumb.
for me, so I started this podcast and I like really stuck with it. So I was happy with that. But like I also was like, oh, I'm gonna go get my real estate license. Like downloaded the course. Did I finish that? No. Like didn't even come close, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. I
But
think
at
I
the
just
time, it's like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna do. This is it. Yeah.
yeah, you know what? I think I was feeling in this mode of like fight or flight and got to figure something else out, have to like change gears. And I just wasn't really ready to do that. I was like, how else can I make money? Can I make a living doing what I'm good at doing? And things will have to come back. Things will have to
Mm.
come back. People are going to get married no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. We all just like hung on to that hope, and thankfully we were right. So
Thankfully, we were right. Thank God. 3 years later, we're looking pretty good.
I know. Jesus.
So, I have like a business advice question for you.
Okay.
What advice do you have for people in who want to break in to the wedding industry?
Shoot, I would say, I mean, a couple things. First of all, I would say connect with anybody that you can in the industry, even if you say, I'm going to come to you and we're going to have a cup of coffee. Even if you don't see exactly how they could help your business, just putting your face in front of somebody and letting them see your commitment, your passion, your drive, or even just hear your questions, I think is so invaluable. And then, I mean, maybe it's a week down the road, maybe it's a year down the road, but you will start to feel that network and they'll start calling.
Right.
I also think that when people are ready, getting somebody to really build out your brand is huge, and that can take investment, but inevitably in this industry, it is built from your passion. And so people are you're very like connected to what it is you want to do, but having somebody else say, who is it that you're trying to reach, really, really envision that person and create all like, I don't know, take this passion that you have and say, okay, trust me, I'm going to turn it into something beautiful that is then going to be marketable, I think is the most invaluable thing you can do for your business.
Totally. And what advice do you have for brides and grooms currently planning their big day?
Make sure that you focus on what authenticity means to you. Check in with that. Because if not, you won't feel the connection. And I really believe in just the sacred nature of gathering. And those people are not going to be gathering, in whatever capacity for you, probably ever again. So understand to make sure that it is something that you really believe in, so that you can be present and show up and then obviously celebrate.
Well, Liz, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. And I
Thank you.
feel like you're a woman of many talents. and I'm excited to see how everything goes on April 30th. I'm sure you will be marrying people galore that day.
Yeah, I can't wait for the city clerk to get like all these marriage licenses from me, but all good.
Hey, you know what though? You're doing your thing.
Exactly, exactly.
So tell everybody where they can go and follow you.
So my Instagram is at have lover will travel, all one word. So obviously have lover will travel. One is about officiating, one is about honeymoons. My website is also haveloverwilltravel.com. And that's, you can find me there. Yeah. I'm not doing the
That's the
TikTok thing yet.
basics, you
Okay,
know?
guys, just bear
We
with me.
we gotta pimp out the Instagram. That's what we do here, you know?
I love it.
Well, everybody go follow Liz at Have Lover Will Travel. Go check out what she's doing with Vow for Girls on April 30th. If you're not already following me on Instagram, go follow me at the Bridetender for all fun facts on the wedding industry, ways to save money on your special day, and of course, hiring the best in the business for your wedding. Until next week, mix yourself a cocktail, slide into my DMs with questions you want answered on all things weddings. Stay sane, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.